next speaker, who is Dr. Grete Musch, General Director, DG Pre-Authorization of the Federal Agency for Medicines and Health Products in Belgium. She received her PhD in Pharmaceutical and Biomedical Sciences and then worked in the pharmaceutical industry for 8 years. Then she moved to the Public Health Services as a Senior Quality Auditor. Since 2004, she has been in charge of the Research and Development Department at the Belgian Federal Agency for Medicines and Health Products, where in 2009 she became Director General for the DG Pre-Authorization. She is involved in many activities, including unmet medical need, early access, clinical research in a broader sense. For trials involving medicinal products and devices, the agency is a key player for all activities and also for the KCE program. Therefore, we're very, very grateful that she has come in today and she is willing to present on ongoing regulatory issues that will affect everyone who's involved in these types of studies. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here with you, and I congratulate the team. I'm really impressed about the work they did already, and Frank asked me to share with you a bit how the changing climate in Europe and in Belgium will change the world of doing clinical trials with medicinal products for the moment. We will see what will happen with the devices afterwards. So my talk is mainly related to medicinal products and the European regulation which is coming on. As you know, the idea is to implement it in autumn 2018. So we are really working hard with the different teams and the different stakeholders to get ready for that. The scope is limited to, as I said, to interventional trials with medicinal products. A big difference is that we don't speak anymore about commercial and non-commercial sponsors. So it means that the regulation rather goes to a risk-based approach and introduce the concept of low interventional trials, which I think is an important theme here for the people sitting here. Also, the non-IMPs are part of the scope. What are the major advantages looked for? First, of course, a streamlined submission and review process for trial applications via the portal and the database, a harmonized and enhanced cooperation between the different member states in Europe, a simplified safety reporting, and increased transparency. So, looking at the new simplified procedure, most of you know that one single European portal and database is built. EMA is working on that. There will be one single dossier and one single submission, so it would facilitate the work of the sponsors. The sponsor can propose a reporting member state, so there will be one reporting member state assigned. And there is a coordinated assessment for multi-state clinical trials. So part one, in most cases, is a joint assessment report between national competent authorities and ethics committees led by the reference member state. Part two is rather a national part and is related to the ethical review. The timelines set are very clear, and the concept of tacit approval prevails. So the situation today, I think most of you know, if a sponsor has to apply for a multinational trial, he has to go to different countries and he has to go to different ethics committee and to wait for the individual returns. So it makes it a rather slow and complex process, if I may say so. And in this slide, you see how the new regulation streamlines the new submission procedure. So you have a sponsor applying for the portal. There is one reference member state which aligns with the comments of the concerned member state with the final outcome, positive or negative, with limited options. And the way back is, of course, streamlined as well. One point which is very important and which has caused also a lot of reflection and discussion is that the regulation has really emphasized on transparency. So it means that in principle, all data gained should be publicly available. There are, of course, exceptions, but that's the general rule, which is a huge change in mentality. So the exceptions are protection of personal data, protection of commercial confidential information, also between member states in the preparation of their assessment. This is in a separate work process flow area. And of course also the protection of the supervision of the Commission to the work the member states are performing. Those disclosure rules are in fact published in very much detail, and it's really detailed on what and when documents can be made public, in fact. And they, in fact, looked at 3 different categories of trials. You can see them here. The first one is phase 1 trials, bioequivalence or bioavailability or biosimilar trials. The second one is the classical phase 2 and 3. And the last one is phase 4 and low interventional trials. And for those type of trials, in fact, these are the categories, and then they defined the different sections in the document which per category can be made public. So I won't read them with you here in detail, but they are given to you first to understand a bit the concept and to read it later if you are more interested in that. Okay, so as I said, we have a small delay in implementation. We hope to be ready in autumn 2018. And of course, there are some transitional aspects. How will we move from the current directive to the new regulation? So one, the date of application is the rate limiting step is, of course, the development of the European portal. So as you know, there is an audit foreseen in summer next year to see whether the portal works and whether the portal works for the member state concerns. After that, there is a validation by the European Commission, and we need 6 months' time to really train and use the system, and we hope, as I said, to be ready in autumn 2018. But it's a real challenge for all of us and also for the EMA team, but we are confident that they will make it. So coming back to the system, it means that from the date of application of the regulation, the sponsors will have 1 year to choose optional, whether they remain under the directive, or whether they go for the new regulation. And after 3 years, in fact, the new regulation will become mandatory for all. So I also would like to share with you where we are in thinking on how we will prepare ourselves at the national level, because we will have to reorganize our way of working, that's for sure. But I would like to be very clear. These are only the major highlights. It's work in progress. We are still working on that. We are really discussing it with all different concerned parties, and of course it will depend on the final validation of our minister, but the great lines coming to a ground of acceptance more and more, I think, can be shared with you. So from a legal perspective, it means that we will go for a new law limited to trials with interventional trials with medicinal products. And this means that for a while, the law that we know today, 7 May 2004, will remain, but we will have to think to revisit it and even think if we remain it or not for the coming months. We are working on royal decrees, so reorganization of the work processes. We should rethink the fees. As you know, there is 1 fee per member state, so we should really rethink the budget system as well. So where are we in our thinking, the main highlights? Each member state has to design a national contact point, and this role would be given to the federal agency. We will work with an independent, what we call college, which will be hosted at the Federal Public Health Service, and we will work in a one-to-one relationship with that college. And the roles, as they think on the responsibilities of this college, would mainly be the coordination, organization of the work related to the ethical evaluation and also a quality assurance function. The members of this college would be assigned by the minister, and this college will work with a decentralized system, so each recognized ethics committee where the site, where the trial is not run, so a different one to keep the independency, will be responsible for the evaluation. And the agency will be responsible for the recognition and the inspection of those ethics committees, and the criteria are still to be defined by royal decree. In case an appeal would be addressed, we would look at the Commission for Medicinal Drugs on behalf of the agency, and the college on behalf of the ethics committees. So how would it look like? So the sponsor files to the portal, and the information goes to the national contact point, which is in fact, in this case, in Belgium, the federal agency. And for the assessment, we will work on a harmonized assessment report, so that's a great advantage, I think, for multinational trials. There are, of course, the same parts as you know now. So there is a quality part where the agency will mainly work, the non-clinical part, agency mainly work, but some points can be, of course, evaluated also by the ethics committee. And the clinical part, there both partners will work together to become to one final assessment report and one benefit risk. And the part 2, as you see, is the job of the ethics committee. So, and in fact, this means that it's only in the case when agency and ethics committee both give a positive opinion that the trial can start. So that is really an important issue. And the report will be uploaded again by the national contact point through the European portal. So that's the evolution, how we see the reorganization at national level. Important is that there is an independent ethical evaluation. It's really clearly stated in the regulation. There is need to have a representation of laymen and patients as well in the Part 1 assessment as in the Part 2. We really believe there is an added value of the co-assessment, so we really believe that having a touch with medical reality is really an added point. And we will keep the short timelines for phase 1 trials. That's really okay. And a pilot joint assessment will be foreseen in the first quarter or second quarter 2017. So what we are doing now is preparing the pilots. We would like to work with a representative sample of different types of trials. It's open for all sponsors, and a communication will be elaborated and followed and probably given this quarter. We are also working, and that's a bit something perhaps we could work together on facilitating patient recruitment. So it's an initiative of the strategic cell where different working groups have been installed and where we are trying also to optimize the collaboration between centers, which IT systems could really help us. Are there particularities for phase 1 and vaccine trials? So we are working with different teams on that and to see how we can optimize the situation in our country. Another one important thing is I hear a lot of enthusiasm and initiatives, but it's also good to know that as well at the European level as at the national level, there is a possibility to seek scientific or regulatory advice very, very soon before you start really developing your trial. And in fact, those national innovation offices are in fact different member states working together to really try to get the drug as soon as possible to the patient who is waiting. So that's one important thing. And then very shortly, because my time is getting up, is giving you a short overview where the European Commission is still working on areas that may be of interest also for you. So one is implementing the regulation on GCP. So we have the hope to adopt it at the end of the year. They are working also on the delegated regulation on GMP. So there it will be published in April 2017. And another important thing is the guidelines. So guidelines on GMP for IMP will be published also April 2017. Also the practical work, how do we will to have to manage with the transition period, because it's not that easy at all. There will be a draft paper also ready for the 1st of November. And an important one to share with you, perhaps most of you know it already, is the risk proportionate approaches in clinical trials. I think for pragmatic clinical trials, as you really want to work on that, it's really worthwhile to look at that document and to provide us your comments. So you can find it on the website of the European Commission. It's really good defined what is a low interventional trials and where can we go for less exigent rules, if I may say, as well on the safety reporting, on the IMP management, on the trial management, on the trial documentation. And perhaps this could be an invitation to work together on that, to see once this guidance is adopted, how do we really work it out in practice? So this is the final end of my talk, so I would like to thank you for attention. Thank you.
Yeah. We have it on the recruitment initiative. What are the next steps?
So I should look to Dr. Kleinermans, who is really leading the 4 different groups. I think we are first looking on what are the hurdles today to let the centers work together and to send patients more easily one from each other. So there is a group working on that. There is another group who is looking at the IT systems. We met already different providers of potential IT solutions, but we should really clarify now what are the possibilities, and there is a meeting foreseen, I think, November, if I'm correct. And from an agency point of view, because we are very focused on the first-in-man trials and early phase development on one hand, and the vaccine trials, we are a bit, how should I say, reflecting on which typical characteristics do we need for those 2 types, if I may say, of domains. So that's, I don't know if Dr. Kleinermans would like perhaps to add something on that, or?
The other thing that I would like to add is that with regard to the IT tool, we want also to put that in the framework of the initiative of health and data and see what sort of support we can bring to the hospital and so on, so that feasibility study with regard to the recruitment can be more reliable, and it will be easier to identify the amount of patients available for each study according to inclusion and exclusion criteria. This is one important topic. We also want to foster networking between the hospital, not only between the hospital, but also between hospital and GP, between academic hospital and other types of hospital to facilitate recruitment.
Thank you for a clear overview. One of the missing points that was left out in the last step of the regulation is the insurance. How will you solve the problem of the insurance for participating centers when there is no industry involved? Because the potential indemnification and insurance is different in different countries.
If I understand your question well, perhaps I was not clear enough, but in fact each trial, whether it's an investigator-driven trial or whether it's a commercial trial, as we call it today, has to file to the portal system. But I agree with you that on that point a lot of training will be needed to really, as well from the sponsor's point of view, of member states' point of view, of whatever, but that's foreseen in their plan. Verzekering. I think that's out of the regulation. In fact, we as a regulatory authority don't look at contracts or insurance system, but except that the ethics committee should review whether it's correct or not. Yeah, that's true.
The question was also whether there be a harmonization requirements for the insurance over the countries. If you submit one file, you also, I assume, will need to submit the no-fault insurance. Will there be a harmonization requirements over the different countries for that?
I think, yeah, I know it's a difficult point. I hope only that the fact that also the part 2 will be shared between the different member states and that it will facilitate the process, I may say, for different critical issues in their review. But it's a problem we know already at the start of 7 May law. So I hope it can facilitate it, but I don't see other possibilities for the moment.
University of Ghent. Until now, all the speakers spoke about involvement of patients. But who's the patient? And how do you think to involve that patient? And for instance, also in pediatric studies or in studies in elderly patients with Alzheimer's, for instance, and so who's the patient?
Okay, I get a sign for the organizers to say, okay, that's a nice swift to the next speaker, but I just will respond shortly on how we see it. It's true that it's a requisite also to have representation of patients, laymen in the ethics committee, so that's really something which has been clearly addressed in the regulation. From the point of view of agency, we started now to work closer with patients' involvement in the benefit risk assessment, if I may say, in a general way, but also more if we go for trials in disease-oriented populations, for instance. There we foresee also but rather on a case-by-case basis, but then to really ask the input of the patients. That's a bit the idea. And we have, you saw that we have a commission for medicinal drugs. There we have 2 members who represented the patients also in that commission. So this gives you an idea how we try to organize it at national level for the moment. Thank you.